welcome to another episode of Fearless and Free TV. Today I'm going to be talking about the Great Awakening. I don't have any messages for you today from any of my spirit guides. Messages not from the Galactic Council. This is just pure inspiration that is my understanding of what we are currently dealing with on the planet and this epidemic, the virus, the corona, which interestingly enough stands for the crown. And I'll get into that a little bit. This is the Great Awakening. I know we've been talking about it for decades, centuries, millennia, and we're here. And it's really a fascinating time to be alive. It's really surreal because we're finally here after people have been predicting it for thousands of years, and prophecies and stories were made up about it. And here we are. It's not exactly the way I expected it to look. I guess I never really tuned in enough to ask exactly how it would look, because for me it's not all cut and dry. One, it is very much delayed from what it was intended to. It was intended to be closer to the year 2000, as everybody predicted it would be, and it kind of got hijacked by people who don't want it to happen. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the Great Awakening isn't a one-time event. At least awakenings aren't a one-time event. Awakenings happen every day to people all over the world, their own personal awakening experiences. And every time we have one of these personal awakening experiences, it gets us closer and closer to the divine truth that's inside of every single one of us. The Great Awakening, however, is a global, because I'm hearing, is a global response to stress in a sense. It's a global awakening. And this is the big one. One of the words I wanted to share with you that was a huge aha for me is the word apocalypse. Now, if you're like me, I grew up in a very fundamentalist Christian-based religion, and I always thought apocalypse meant the end of the world. And we had, 7-year supply of food in the basement and everything we would need for the end of the world to come in. And I grew up believing in all this end of the world hoopla. I had nightmares about it when I was a kid. I had dreams of the moon dripping with blood and the sun and people dying in the streets, and every horrible nightmare you can imagine a child having about the end of the world. That was my normal reality. So a couple of years ago, I noticed that whenever there was a cycle of the planets or certain dates lining up, or the blood moon that happened a couple of years ago, I literally felt my body go into a PTSD panic attack. And fortunately, I've been at this work, my own personal transcendence work, for enough years to know that that's what it was. It was a full PTSD response to the end of the world stuff I was taught as a child. And so I've had to sit and process that and really come to terms with, what does this mean for me? And a couple of years ago, my kids pointed out that the word apocalypse isn't at all what I was told it meant. The word apocalypse actually means great revelation. It means a great realization. It's an uncovering of things that weren't known before. And that really took a lot of the charge out of the word, because then I really understood, now I get it. The Great Awakening, when I compare it to my own personal awakening that I had about 10 years ago, is about all of humanity coming to terms with our beliefs. It's about all of humanity coming to terms with our fear-based beliefs and looking at all the stories that we've been told and finding out the truth, because the truth is quite often radically different from what we've always believed. That's where we are now. And I've been calling it, for about the last 6 months, I've been calling it the holy shift. Before the virus ever showed up, I was calling it the holy shift. And I didn't even know what that really meant. I was hearing holy shift and shake awake, and that people were going to be bombarded with something they were completely unprepared for. I thought it was just an uncovering of things that were hidden. So for me, when I think about the Great Awakening, this is my medical background coming to play, is that there is a disease on the body of humanity. Now, all of humanity, we're so interconnected. Every thought, feeling, emotion, action that we do, that we feel, that we speak, that we think, is fed into the collective consciousness. So we're not separate from each other. We're not separate from God. We're not separate from each other. We never have been. It's just that our beliefs have told us that. And so the body of humanity has had a disease. So what I saw happening back in, starting, I want to say in 2010, was that we've had these bandages covering up our disease. And we're constantly putting new bandages on and covering it up and pretending it doesn't exist because nobody wants to deal with it. And what I started seeing about 10 years ago is that we'd start taking off the wraps and looking at the disease and digging through the disease, all of it, looking at all of it. And it isn't pretty, it's stinky, it hurts. And we've been covering it up and putting under wraps because nobody wants to look at it. Well, now under the virus, we're being forced to look at it, all of it. And so what I think is going to start happening is that we're going to start seeing all of the ugliness, all of the pain, all of the suffering, all of the mistruths, all of the fear that's been controlling humanity, all of it is going to start being exposed. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't buy into that. I was raised with every conspiracy under the sun, so there isn't one out there I haven't heard. It's old news for me. I choose to focus on the light. I choose to heal the stories as they're revealed. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help teach people spiritual freedom. So for me, the Great Awakening is about that. It is about waking up from the darkness that we've been in for a very, very long time. It is a spiritual awakening. So that experience I had 10, 12 years ago after 2008, when my entire world started falling apart, and my higher self, in my book Transcending Fear, I call it my inner therapist or my inner counselor, teaching me how to remedy my life. This transcendence process I was given is really the process that humanity is going to have to go through as we start waking up and seeing the fear that has been so pervasive on our planet. I call it a fear-based reality we've been living in. And that's what the Great Awakening is all about. It's like coming out of the darkness. And remember, it's always darkest just before the dawn. So right now we are at a very, very dark point in humanity. I've been calling it being in the birth canal, or being in the cocoon before the butterfly reconstitutes as a butterfly and sets itself free. That's where we are. This quiet time where we're sitting at home and so many people are terrified to go outside and so many people are afraid to live. This quiet time is exactly what we've needed. It's our time to get in touch with ourselves. It's our time to really prioritize what's really important. And it's allowing us to see what we've never been able to see before. This is our own apocalypse. It's our opportunity to hear and have revealed and understand everything that's been kept under wraps. That's what the Great Awakening is. And it's a spiritual awakening because it also includes religion. So much fear has been fed to humanity through our religions. And I know there are a lot of people out there who think, yeah, I'm more woke than everybody else. And And no one is, because we're all coming at this from various angles. And the deception that's been overlaying our human experience extends across everything. So every person on this planet is going to have to rethink their beliefs in some way, shape, or form. It's not easy. It's not pretty. It can be quite painful if you don't have the tools to be able to navigate disbelieving. And there are going to be people who will check out because they can't handle it. And also because they're not intended to be here for this process. It will feel like the end of the world, and for some people it does. And if you really understand that this is a transition that we're moving through, it's really the beginning of a whole new world. This is the beginning of the love-based reality we've all been talking about. The heaven on earth, the peace on earth we've been talking about for thousands of years. This is it. This is our opportunity to create that. And yet we can't create that. We can't be the butterfly until we deal with the breakdown. We can't have a rebirth until we go through the dark night of the soul, the birth canal, to get there. This darkness is where we are. That's what the Great Awakening is. The Great Awakening is going through the darkness to get to the light. That's where we are. So what a lot of people don't understand is that there have been many awakening experiences on our planet. So this isn't it. This isn't the only one. We just have seen time speed up. So we've seen a lot of them, more so than before. And this is the culmination of all of them. Like, this is the big one. And we're given this opportunity so that we can recreate our entire planet. And we are at that choice point. Either we wake up and create a planet based in love and freedom and harmony, or we choose to go down the path of, again, of servitude to fear. We have this. We're being given an amazing, an extraordinary gift right now. This quiet time sitting inside, which some argue was created by the cabal to keep us in fear. But it's also serving our greatest good, because in this we can sit and really think about what it is we want to create. We don't have to be afraid. We can create this new world the way we want to create it. Now, the way I see our world and our human experience is like the most complex video game you can even possibly imagine. And we've been ramping up this video game that our souls have been playing since the beginning of humankind, and it keeps going faster and faster and faster, and history repeats itself until we've finally gotten to the point where we're ready to level up into a new level of the game. And that's where we're heading. That's what the ascension is all about. Now, I'm going to get into the ascension in a different video because it's very complex and it depends on which frame of mind you're approaching it from. Ultimately, it's about the human collective raising our consciousness into a new loving consciousness where we live in, it's almost like a return to the Garden of Eden. We get to choose that. One of the messages that came in for me about 10 years ago is that planet Earth is a learning planet until we collectively choose for it to be a place of peace. We choose that. It's up to us. There isn't some spaceship that's going to come and take us away and plant us on a new planet. This is our planet. We choose it. We collectively create heaven on earth. And we need to remember that's what this awakening experience is all about. That's what this virus experience is all about. It's about us remembering who we are. And it's about us uncovering all of the yuck, all of the fear-based beliefs, all of the control, all of the misappropriation, so that we don't take it into this next reality. We are now being given the gift of creating. So that's what the Great Awakening is. It is about each and every one of us waking up to our full divine potential, all of us waking up to the truth that we are one humanity. We're all nearly 8 billion aspects of the one mind that is humanity. of the one body that is humanity, of this one earth experience that we are, and that none of us are separate from it, that none of us are separate from God, that none of us are separate from the galaxy, because every being, every humanoid that exists, we're all part of it, and it's all part of us. We are collectively creating this reality, whether we like it or not. And we choose whether we feed love into it, and we choose whether we feed fear into it. We choose whether we stay stuck in it, and we choose whether we transcend above it. All of it is a choice. We choose how we respond to the circumstances that are existing in our life right now. And as all this stuff starts coming to the surface that isn't pretty, that challenges everything that we believe, it's up to us to remember that we are the embodiment of love, every single one of us, and choose to rise above it rather than allow our energy and ourselves to get sucked into the blame and the anger and the resentment, because that's not what this is all about. This is about us rising above it, and it's coming to the surface so that we can see it, we can learn the lessons from it, we can transmute it, and we can rise above it. That is what the Great Awakening is, and that's why we're here, because we're ready to level up to a whole new level of the game, and we can't do that until we take a good, long, hard look at where we've been, so we don't keep repeating the same mistakes. History doesn't have to repeat itself. When we learn the lessons that we need to learn from it, so we don't have to keep doing it the same old way. This is a gift we're being given. So when information starts coming up that makes you uncomfortable, that challenges your beliefs, be at least open enough to listen. Trust your inner guidance. How does it feel? Because if it's based in fear, and even harder is if it's fear disguised as love, which is much more difficult to recognize, but always check with your gut. How does this feel? Does it feel right? Does it feel true? Does it feel what's best? And it's not going to be all love and light and loving. I hate to break it to you. But when we're dealing with our own inner issues and resolving our inner issues, and some of you who have been through your own spiritual awakening know this, resolving our inner issues isn't pretty, because it's asking us to bring all of our beliefs to the surface and process them. We're now in that collectively, bringing all of our beliefs to the surface for processing. It requires courage, it requires love, it requires loads of self-compassion and compassion for the entire human family, and an open mind, and remembering that what we're creating is a reality that's based in love. And to be able to see all of the experiences and all of this stuff that's coming to the surface as the great apocalypse that it is. The apocalypse, which is this time when we get to look and see and have revealed to us everything that we might not have been able to see before. And with that, I'm going to say farewell, and I'll do another episode on the ascension so that you can understand what that is as well. Until then, stay bold, stay courageous, and stay fearless.